everyone, and thank you. It is so nice to see you all here tonight. I really hope you've enjoyed viewing some of my collection that is on display in the other room. Of course, I do hope my dear Cupid has lived up to expected beauty, which is the focus of this presentation. Before we start, please let me begin with expressing my heartfelt gratitude to each and every one of you for your presence and support, guided by your innate curiosity and intuition that something meaningful is about to happen. I must give individual thanks to the people that have been a great support along my journey. All of you. Who's here? Benedict, Joe Boy, watched all my documentaries straight away. He was asking me so many questions the other day. Jade helping me writing, Emma helping me through some of my stresses. Nicholas, so intrigued, and he's the main man for pigments and scientific analysis in the paint world. Simon, Tom, Emma, I want to say everybody, Paul, all of you, Javi, Mr. Pecker come all the way from Italy. He's fantastic. Justin, from the beginning, straight away, helping me. I'm looking around. I don't even know why my closest friend, Dave, Rob, Donna's been there all the way. Taz, I'm missing people out. I'm sorry. Emma, sorry, Emma. Emma's helped conserve the painting. She's been with me since day one. When I first found Antoinetta, which gave birth to all of this, which I learned all my research, her studio she once worked in on the Houghton estate, I don't want to go over things I'm already saying, I couldn't get through to nobody, but then one day I spoke to Emma and she took me under her wing, and I hope she doesn't forget this, and I'm probably talking right out of place here, but I said, I can be your assistant. She was like, yeah. I said, but you know the assistant one day comes to master. And she went, no. Sorry, I'm not there yet, but I've come a long way from that moment. And you never see it coming, but so. As we proceed, please feel free to make notes on your phone. I won't think you're talking to your friends, even if you are, but make notes if you start getting questions, because I'm really up for questions at any point, on email in the future, at the end, or whenever. Questions are important to me, because I can't, an hour and a half of explaining is not going to cover everything, and I might just say something. You'd be like, well, how do you know that? Why is that? I cannot tell you all the reasoning, but everything I say will come with reasoning, and if not, I'll say, well, I won't come up with it for nothing, okay? So let's give you a brief of tonight's presentation. I'll start with an introduction, then we'll begin with the discovery of Cupid. Then we'll move through the stages of conservation and realisation. From there, we will look at the wider group of mythological works, including the Danae and the two Venus paintings, before touching on Vasari's account. After that, we will be hitting the provenance timeline of the painting. But what I want to make clear is that is the real juicy bit. That's the fun, that's the adventure. That's when we'll begin looking at the histories of ownerships, but then I'll just show you some works of the time, and they were influenced by this painting. But then the momentum will build, we'll go, rather than just paintings that are of a Venus satire Cupid or something similar, you start seeing this embedded blueprint. And I just have one question to ask you all, and you don't need to have the right answer, but if you could be any raise of hands, if anyone has an idea of this blueprint that I've been talking about, of Correggio's mythological works, orchestrating the greatest influence of the masters paintings in history by Velázquez, Caravaggio, everybody, is that, could I just see some hands if anybody has an awareness of what I've been wanting to share with you all. So as many people, yeah? Yeah, some little waves. That's okay, thank you so much. A lost masterpiece that was tragically forgotten to history, which has now been regained, and it begins its journey back into the world. The work on initial inspection presenting itself as a beautiful fragment, but in fact it is so much more than this. Cupid is an artefact of great world importance and is now at the beginning of its rebirth. My studies indicate not only is the painting conclusively by the hand of Antonio Allegri de Correggio, for unequivocal evidence. But on top of that, I wish to show you how this particular work was the leading masterpiece to come out of the Italian Renaissance, realising its importance as a significant world treasure. Along with its counterpart Leda and the Swan, which is now located in Berlin at the Gemäldegalerie Gallery, it passed through the greatest collections in history and was documented as Venus Satire Cupid or similar by Correggio multiple times in the greatest collections. So we were talking about the Leda and the Swan, which is on the screen. Both paintings were subject to heavy mutilations by the hands of the Jansenist Duke d'Orléans, and this also included the cutting of an Io painting of great fame, and in fact a Danae, contrary to modern understandings. Around 40 great masterpieces were known to have been lost to history or damaged in this traumatic event. My studies indicate that this was also the probable eventuality to Leonardo's famous lost Leda painting. Many fragments still survive today from different works and will certainly make an exceptional exhibition if tracked down and brought together. Cupid has become a key to greater understanding and these important mythological works by Correggio and so much more. It has given me the ability to uncover a hidden blueprint throughout history, unveiling the truth behind many of the most important paintings and should not be taken lightly. As big and informative the information I've gathered, I've tried my utmost to keep myself from overloading you all and myself, as it is so intense, all-encompassing, that we could go through the night and more. We will cover much ground which is not only goes beyond the great puzzle, but also an unfolding revelation of unimaginable significance. One could suggest a turning point in the complete understanding of art history, and although fearsome so many of us are to change, we must continue to search for greater truths with every opportunity that arises through new information. For many of you, it is no secret this project has defined my life for the past 5 years. Although which I can agree this is a short space of time, I can assure you it has been an intense roller coaster, all derived from a passionate dedication to find answers where others may not have chosen to seek. This was all thanks to Cupid. Life is a journey of exploration. Some of us are content to follow familiar paths, while others feel compelled to push beyond our own perceived boundaries. There is no wrong way, as each step paves the next. I truly believe in the perfection of that every individual in the world gives reason to us all. If Cupid was realised overnight and so easily, then I would never have pushed so hard and produced the findings that I have. The main point I wish to make here is that each of us is what makes each other, and we are not to be without the pains and hardships, as it is all needed to bring us on to our next step. 5 years ago, this January past, I decided overnight to seek a deeper understanding in antique art acquisition. Although an impulsive decision, it may have been part of a natural progression of the area of which I had already begun. Like a magnificent treasure in itself, the realm of study beheld me, and I felt completely in love with all that it involves. The journey it takes you on, I can only express, feels like a gripping experience travelling out of the room along timeline events whilst growing your understanding of so much, which is simply the history of all of us. Of course, I felt frustrations along the way, which I'm so grateful for, as it has all paved way for opportunity. Like I previously mentioned, everything before us leads to what we do now, and what we do will become the stepping stones of the future generations. We collectively hold great responsibility in steering the ship of our evolved understanding of the past. The meeting of creative intuition and disciplined academic research creates a rare kind of magic, one that has allowed me to uncover connections never seen before. I love a puzzle, and when finding this arena of history, it fed my hunger. My instinct is to buy questions. The more beautiful and mysterious, the better. Many of the greatest objects I have owned came from this impulse of seeing something beautiful, knowing nothing about it, and being compelled to learn its story and uncover its truth. The discovery of Cupid. As we now explore the story of this discovery, I hope I can provide some comfort and amazement through my explanations. When I found Cupid in December 2020, it was the same year I found my first major art discovery in the summer, which was my dear Antoinetta, who had been missing to the world for 400 years and was the greatest treasure belonging to the collection of Ulysses Aldrovandi. Tonight is her first appearance in public since being discovered, and I give thanks to this painting for the great journey it has brought to me.
As I scoured websites and resources for my next acquisition in the mid-December of 2020, a most peculiar work of which I can only describe at the time as being a cherub of great beauty, using my obsessive search tricks born from finding stock for my business, Cupid found its way in front of me. I remember vividly the moment I purchased the painting and only just pulled through and won it to the last pound. It scares me to think that under the difference of a small amount of money, Cupid may have gone unnoticed for the next few hundred years. And again, I may never have found my love of the mythological works and, of course, the artist that is Antonio Allegri de Correggio. These what-ifs you may feel are not needed, but the scare it gives us does spark some static feeling to realise this was all and only the way it was ever going to be. When Cupid arrived, I was taken by surprise. How could I have acquired something so beautiful, so reminiscent of Leonardo, and so simply? At the time, I didn't even know it was a work depicting a Correggio. Admittedly, it was still unknown to me. That moment of confusion and awe has never left, as I thought to myself, where do I start now the goalposts had changed? How could I buy this amazing work? It was so confusing. I honestly felt a moment of being lost. Because of the painting's sheer quality and beauty, in a way, I was feeling the need to question myself. Must I reevaluate what I understand is good? How can I obtain a work like this? Now, of course, ever since then, I know this is no ordinary acquisition, and one could only ever dream of finding something like this in a lifetime. Conservation and realisation. The first step was to WhatsApp an image to Emma Boyce-Gore, who was then working at the studio on the Houghton estate. She today teaches at the Hamilton Car. I immediately commissioned an X-ray, learning the valuable insight this can give for my current project of the time, which was Antoinetta. This revealed a hidden hand on the top right-hand corner, confirming the fragment as part of a larger work. The painting was promptly sent for conservation. Emma had confirmed on a message it looks to be Cupid after Correggio's famous work in the Louvre. Residing to the fact that this work appears to be a copy of another, I lost no heart in still wanting to know more about this mysterious painting that clearly beheld a story. Emma makes an important discovery almost immediately. The pigments and minerals in the work appear to be of only the time of the original in the Louvre and match 10 out of 10 for what Correggio is known to have used, including the rare combinations of pleurisite and azurite, which combination has only been found in a handful of works at the time. Correggio's experimental use of gold priming was also discovered, which had also been indicated in historical writings to have been used by Correggio, along with proven analysis of this. These findings were also comparable to those within Correggio's two allegories in the Louvre. With scientific analysis linking the painting to Correggio's hand, it suddenly became apparent Cupid could be the oldest copy since the original work in the Louvre. A few days later, Emma calls again. A very interesting damask has revealed itself. Geometric and ornate in its pattern, it is something so extremely rare to find. While all this technical examination was underway, my door was in heavy traffic of every Correggio book that I could acquire, while simultaneously scanning every online avenue for all things surrounding the Correggio mythological paintings. The consistent factor or common denominator that continuously crept up was the famous traumatic event of the mutilations by the hands of the Duke d'Orleans against these works. So now it appears Correggio works were cut in the Duke of Orleans collection, amongst others, and I have a heavily cut painting which is also depicting a Correggio mythological figure. Studies into the leader painting showed it was also heavily mutilated, cutting off the most central head of the leader, dividing it into three main sections. It turns out this leader painting was not only cut, just like my painting, but painted on the exact geometric rare damask pattern weave canvas, which has only been noted to have been used within the most prestigious works in history. Helena Bowermans, on initial observation, stated the canvas of being 1522, comparable with that used in Titian's Isabella d'Este. Also to mention is something quite special, Count Nicola Maffei, who we mention more later on, who was a close associate of Federico II, the Duke of Mantua. He commissioned a work from Titian of the Supper of Emmaus, which physically shows a painted damask. This tablecloth, not many people get to notice it, and it's becoming more recognised, is the quality of the image is lost here, but maybe your imaginations can fill in the gaps. But this is a damask painted, it's specifically painted on the tablecloth. So the tablecloths were very important, and they was painted in there for a reason. And these tablecloths were used in great paintings, and it's more to say why they were used. I think they highlight candlelight so much more. They have little lumps and bumps in them, but you know, it's a very fancy canvas, and it holds greater strength, and it's used in big paintings as you know, it has so many things going for it. It's why it's special. But every point I make, I can go like deep dive so much about, but I've got a soundtrack. But what's really amazing is the head of this Christ is the same head of my discovered work, which I already have who was the head curator of the Gamalda Gallery for many years. Dr. Roberto Contini believes this to be a late work by the hand of Titian, and I have many scholars interested, and I had replies from the head of the National Gallery within an hour of when I sent him an email of it. That is a project that's ongoing, but it's here tonight, and it's special. I mean, that's a fantastic painting. You can see that for yourself. So the journey of awareness of this damask in Correggio works was serendipitously in timing with Helena's studies and online publications of other works on her website at labo.pt. The same canvas also appears in the Lamentation by Correggio, and which from my own visit to Parma I can suggest it's within the Martyr of Four Saints that hangs opposite. This is way far ahead for me to go into right now, but I also wish to bookmark the great connection between these two biblical works before we proceed, as they are the similar dimensions to Danae and Leda, and they are also on damask. We have evidence to show the original mythological works were part of the Ovid chamber at the Palazzo Te, and one mystery that has held many hypotheses around the full layouts indicates the possibility of two other unknown landscape works that would have made the room complete with the famous six. So here you can partly see that some evidence presents some suggestive questions which we will pick up further along. Let's now look at the accepted... Sorry, just before I mention this, I just would like to say, this part now, when we explain the mythologicals, it's very important to know what this work was part of and what this is it. And this is the bit that's going to sort of maybe make your eyes go cross over. I'm so sorry, but it's really, really important to understand a bit of information and some context around the mythological works. But I promise you that after this bit, which is being filmed, it's important for many people around the world to see, it will get really easy and fun when we see these blueprints and wonderful images. So I'm just apologising ahead. It's a tough thing, and that's why this state of understanding the mythologicals has been left quite confused and parked up, and why Correggio may even be forgotten, because it's just too much for one's brain to sort of comprehend all these different movements, these tragedies and copies and all sorts. So anyway, so let's now look at the accepted six great works, which I appreciate is known to be due to the certain factors which I've observed and understood as to why this has become the known. I will then follow with my explanation from a collective reasoning, which I can say many factors supersede over the prior ideas from new evidence and research, which can be explained as putting the dots together. So the accepted six, as we know, is The School of Love in London, which is by Correggio, and one of his first works he did of the mythologicals. The Venus Satire Cupid in Paris, which is a Correggio work, which would have been a secondary work. The Io in Vienna, a secondary work by Correggio, but there was a famed model before these. The Ganymede, which is in Vienna. The Leader in Berlin, which is the first model and the only model, and we'll go over that in a minute. It's by Correggio. And the Danae in Rome. So this is really important now. While studying the overall evidence to date surrounding his works, I have reason to believe that the 6 are to be a convoluted makeup of the original famous 6 passing from Charles V, and that evidence shows a much larger explanation which includes up to another 4 works which I class as variants, each also by Correggio. The presented Danae above is most certainly a 17th century Flemish copy, probably by Bartholomew Spranger, and I have great reason for this attribution through both scientific and academic evidence, and the current attribution of it to be an authored work by Correggio is just not sufficient in comparison to my findings. I have lost friends over this Danae revelation, but I will stick with the evidence over any fear of any personal drama, and do very much appreciate that it is known as one of Italy's national treasures, but we must confront the facts. The Danae in the Borghese was sold to Prince Camillo Borghese in 1827 for £285. Records show it was imported to Rome as a copy, which later opinions have created this excuse was to save on taxes, although the purchase amount was always known and was not at all a vast amount that reflected that of a genuine Correggio painting, even of the time. In true comparison of an authentic work of a Correggio Danae of around the same time came from the Walsh Porter collection, originally owned by Francis Lobier, which originally came from the Duke Orleans collection. And here we can see was noted as mutilated and repaired, and was purchased for £2,152 in 1810, which was 17 years prior. The Borghese holds a pigment known as tin whites, not to be found in 16th century Italian oil paintings. It was known to be found in ceramics, but it is evident in 17th century Flemish works. The scientific report from the Borghese concludes this to be a unicum finding. So the Borghese, I believe, do know that it's a copy because their wording even sort of steps around it in so many ways. Rudolph commissioned artists of his court, which included Bartholomew Spranger, Rubens, and others, to paint copies of the Correggio works, especially those he so desperately wished to obtain. And when he set out to build his great collection, Rudolph especially wished to acquire the Danae before he managed to persuade the sculptor Pompeo Leone to relinquish this work, along with Io, which Leone had received from Philip II, coming from his father Charles V's collection, which was gifted from Federico II. It is recorded that Bartholomew Spranger and other artists such as Joseph Heinz were tasked to commission a copy of Danae, which from inspection of each of the gallery court painters connected to the commissioned copies, it seems apparent through stylistic analysis that this was completed by Bartholomew Spranger, not without the idea he may have had help from others. I am sure more information be gathered from the Inventoria Rudolfina Institute to further understand the commissioned work, which I would be so grateful for. It is also known that Bartholomew Spranger visited Milan, where the Danae was located with Leone. When Christina invaded Prague, all the works would have been taken, which evidence shows it included the copy of Danae along with the original. A Danae was witnessed and reported by Sebastian Bourdon to be of no value, held in the Christina stables, which appears could have been the copy, and that the original was held in her apartment. This quote for a long time was never understood. Why he mentioned this and was critiqued to be an unreasoned mistake. The later Aldous-Saki collection notes both the original and the copy, with the original in the noble apartment, whilst the said dark room at the end of the hall held the copy with other non-displayed works on the floor. Danae is listed to have been mutilated in the Orleans collection and repaired. This story is also depicted in works by Hogarth. To be clear, the Borghese painting is not cut. It's reported as being cut. It's not cut. Sorry, I'll just tell you about some things. Before I discovered that the inventory of the said dark room at the end of the hall that held this painting, I always believed that this sat on the floor because this whole lower level of the painting is so damaged and up the sides as if damp had been rising, delaminating the picture. And I have a Correggio work. I've looked at all the Correggio works. From a distance, you just think the works are so soft, but his brushwork is quite loose, and not as loose as Annibale's, but not as soft as Spranger's, which gives the haze. But this is not a Correggio work. It's. I say it with great sort of, I don't want to say authority, I'll say it with great passion. It really is not an authentic Correggio work. And its companion leader is on a damask, and so is Cupid. So why wouldn't Dani be on a damask? It clearly was part of the commission set, same as mine, and leader, which was quoted by Vasari. I love this bit. The actual physical condition of the Dani and the Borghese, noted by Professor David Excursion in his Correggio book, he notes that this painting is very flat compared to all the other works. It's because it's a copy. It's not got the build-up of an original work, the ideas, the thinking. All the Correggio's works have the build-up. This is just a painted copy on a standard weave with nothing else going on underneath it. It doesn't have the matching damask. It has pigments that are found only in the 17th century. Nicholas is the man to say, you can shut me down whenever, and we can talk about it. But I've even referred to your book, and they're found in 17th century works. I spoke to people in the Netherlands, and they say it's prolific in the 17th century and not found in the 16th century. And to be unicum finding that shouldn't even be there, and I'm saying it's not, is because it isn't. Since my findings on Dani, it's felt a tragedy to me that Correggio's hand has been clearly misjudged, and this painting has gave artistic education to many regarding it to be a signature work, which it is clearly not. We must be responsible for the truth from the presented facts and not be scared to acknowledge what is right over aged comfort. This discovery, and my point of this, is not to help my Cupid. To be honest, it goes against me. It puts more scholars against me. It makes probably scholars of Italy and people, this is our national treasure. It doesn't help the journey of Cupid in one way, but in true respect, it honours that I have to understand this collection throughout and what's going on. And taking into account all the information available, which includes the discovery of Cupid, we are able to produce a greater picture of understanding that makes more sense over all the past confused ideas. As I mentioned, confused, as plainly there are many. This section regarding the mythological works is extremely important, but I must warn, it may sound slightly complex. I'm going to go to evidence indicates that up to a set of 6 works were gifted to Charles V from Federico II, also agreed by Cecil Gould, one of the Monuments men and was a Correggio specialist, which is no longer with us, and his book was fantastic. And if you want a good Correggio book, Cecil Gould's Correggio book is the one for now. Information indicates us to believe that Federico himself had a variant set created by Correggio from the recorded mythological cartoon templates after the gifted 6 works went to Charles V. But it is likely the School of Love, that was the first produced independent work of all the works, stayed with Federico, then passing to Nicola. That is now in the London's National Gallery, which passed down through Mantua, eventually to Charles I. I believe the secondary Venus Satyr Cupid is the one now in the Louvre and also went with Federico, then into the Nicola Maffei collection. But I repeat, this was a secondary model, and the 2 other secondary works were the Io and Ganymede, now in Vienna, which also went with Federico and were later passed down through inheritance. So 3 of the 4, I believe, are secondary commissions, and the School of Love being a first model, the 2 Venuses, both eventually going to England, purchased by Charles I. And my theory that the Io and Ganymede later passed down to Eleonora Gonzaga, joining Ferdinand III when they married, which was after the theft of the great collection in Prague, which held the full 6. by Correggio, including an Io and Ganymede. This understanding makes more sense than the prior understood thoughts through many combining factors. Eleonora Gonzaga is recorded to have inherited Correggio works in her collection, which she brought with her to Vienna, with no named works as of yet, but at the time of her arrival and marriage to Ferdinand III was the time when these two engravings were produced, and them two engravings are in the collection. There might be just engravings about bits and bobs, but they all hold importance to everything here. The two clearly represent the Vienna models. They may have been a celebration of their arrival. An Io by Correggio was mentioned in the Mantua collection as the dream. As we know, an Io also passed through the Charles V collection, documented all the way to the Duke d'Orleans collection, which is the greater famed model over the Vienna model, evident through so much influence and copies. I just want to say, this Vienna model that you see and we all love, the influence this had is nothing compared to the original Io. The original Io, I've got to stick to the programme because I'll tell you, it was stolen 3 times. It's stolen now in the 20th century. It was stolen by Napoleon and returned. And it was stolen by Christina. It doesn't need to be forgotten. It don't exist. And let's all be fascinated about this one. There was an Io that was part of the great collection of 6, that was part of my collection. And basically we're going to get to a point of where there was a great 6 paintings and there's only 2 of them available at the moment in the world, and the rest need to be found and it needs to be understood. Here is what I deem to be the most probable works of Federico's 4 passing through Mantua. So this is good just to try and make it a bit easier. So this is the great collection by Charles V that made all this impact of influence through history and made the big fame, which was the original Dani, which is now lost. The leader, these are the only ones that were ever made. Federico never got a complete set of what he wanted because he was so desperately chasing the cartoons that were used to create these works, because when you do a variant, you'll use the cartoons to create more works and adjustments. A lot of my videos and stuff talks about this. But so this was the great commissioned first set, and this was the Federico, the second set, that then passed through Nicolai Maffei. There was no leader, there was no Dani, and it may be the ones that he was chasing for. Even though it sounds a little bit confusing, this was the first school of love. It wasn't just as simple as there was a 6 made and then a 4 made, but it was this school of love was the first model, and then he created this set, and then he had this is a secondary model through so many reasons. Here is what I deem to be the Charles V set of 6. So the Venus Satyr Cupid, the first model. This is Charles V. This was the great version, my version. This is the one that impacted history. So a school of love, which was not mutilated, but now lost into obscurity, which is possibly in the Bruckenthal in Romania. And if Nicholas, one day we have to go to Romania and we need to use your analysis to confirm this work, because that's probably the one. The leader was the first model in Berlin, which was mutilated. The Dani, which is now lost, was the first model, which was mutilated. The Io was mutilated, which is now lost. A Ganymede, we have a lot of evidence to suggest. Solid on all the works, but the Ganymede holds some sort of questions that I need to bring more evidence. But I can go over many sketches and versions. Understanding the 2 Venus Satyr Cupid works. The depiction I use as a great display of my once complete Venus Satyr Cupid, the first model, and the most famous when it comes to impact and influence. We come across its timeline shortly, but first I will show its comparisons to the Louvre model. The quiver detail example versus each other length. This work, we'll come across why this is my work, but this is an actual painting of the work when it was complete. This was painted by William van Heck, and he's only known to have painted 4 paintings, and this painting is in 3 of the 4 paintings. But when we do some comparisons in a second, this is exactly my flame. And what's really interesting, which come much later, which the Correggio Foundation was quite excited, but they didn't, they didn't go no further. But it's basically This quiver is the same as in my painting, but originally in the Louvre model, you can see it was a longer quiver, and that matches mine. It shows that basically in the underdrawing of the Louvre model is my model. The tree details are different. There's a different colour blanket. This shows that this isn't a copy. This is a variant model, and this is the one that had the great fame throughout the Low Countries, impacting everybody. It wasn't painted for fun. It was the big cheese. This was the painting. And like I promise you, this is we'll get on a really fun bit that's really visual and fun, and you'll see the measure of its importance. Correggio works were the most important in Europe. They had the most eventful lives since their creation, moving place to place, king to queen, and dukes over the centuries. Napoleon stole Io, the now again stolen most famous model that is 3 times, including Christina, then later to be returned to Germany. Hitler would take home Leader often as a favourite painting, alongside Vermeer's The Art of Painting. I have some extremely interesting notes on this Vermeer work, which is a blueprint system by Correggio. William Shakespeare's greatest works are believed to have not only derived from Ovid's Metamorphosis stories, but are believed to have been influenced by the Correggio works themselves. You don't have to be an art passionate. You might be passionate about writing. Shakespeare's works, we've got written knowledge that there's certain specific quotes in there that relate to him actually admiring the Correggio works. And the Correggio works inspired so much. And basically, he may have seen them through circulated prints and engravings, which would have been prolific of the time. The work was so famous. I can do some. It's just too much to say, but there's so many easy ways. Like, it's a small example here, a fun piece of data. If you do art research and you go onto the Getty archives just to look up a painting, you type in Leonardo da Vinci in the Getty archives, you'll get 2,500 results. If you type in Correggio, you'll get 6,500 results. That's something in itself. Queen Christina, a great love of mine, invaded Prague in 1648 and stole the once Rudolph II art collection. The raid was actually believed to be driven by the need to steal the art collection, with the greatest of them being the Correggio mythological works, and Christina wanting the art collection. We can acknowledge the accepted statement that Prague was invaded for the works of art, and the following evidence, which I present Cupid's importance, it would be a very fair suggestion to say that Cupid and its partner works give reason to this famous event in history. With the evidence that they clearly had eventual lives throughout their birth and throughout the whole of history, just focusing on that moment highlights that is quite possible. One of the earliest documents we have on Correggio is that by Giorgio Vasari, The Lives of the Most Excellent Painters. It is brought to my attention that art history schooling teaches you that Vasari is wrong sometimes, to fit in line with scholarly interpretations. I'm not against the acceptance of anyone being wrong, as every day we grow and learn, expanding our understanding of new information which presents itself. I bring to case the factual evidence we now hold surrounding Cupid in every which way possible, which returns us to the principal quote by Vasari mentioning a Venus was commissioned by Federico II and gifted to Charles V is completely correct. Vasari records both a Venus and a Leda gifted to Charles V from Federico II. He also mentions other key details which all relate specifically to the additional works in the mythological sequence. Vasari's comments on the presence of a Venus, which having long been queried by scholars with problematic conclusions due to the Mantua Venus taking a different path which eventually landed with Charles I in the mid-17th century, So the conclusion made by scholars in the 19th century was thought that the Venus description must be wrong by Vasari, while the painting was evidently no longer in the world domain. This is all understandable. It appears the only case to why Vasari is said to be wrong is because of the Louvre version went on a different path. But as we have since discovered that a Venus satire Cupid by Correggio did pass through the great collections, starting with Charles V and following on to his assistant Granvelle, most probably as a gift after the death of Charles V from his son Philippe II. The biggest fact of all is we have Cupid, and all the evidence of its existence through history, its locations and its events, along with scientific evidence indicating its authorship. So to state that Vasari is wrong would only be fair as a conjectural hypothesis prior the now brought to attention evidence and the discovery of Cupid, proving honourably that Vasari is correct. Some have said and continued the age-old debate, he must not have meant Venus, he must have meant a Danae, although Vasari refers to a Venus in a wonderful landscape with golden locks of hair only Correggio could paint. He further mentions Putti trying the points of his arrows on a touchstone, which correlates to the Danae. However, he also mentions the details that correspond with the Io, with a limpid stream passing between the feet and carnations. If we pick up on Venus has golden locks of hair, please view the female figures of the mythologicals. You can see what a Venus with golden locks of hair would look like in comparison. The other references make it also clear he's referencing core details of each of the works in a second-hand mismatched way, but they are simple notes that confirm to details of each of the works. So it seems a step-by-step equation we can see clarity in Vasari's quote of a leader and a Venus in a wonderful landscape, to which I believe, of course, is the work Cupid was once part of, and holds the greatest amount of detail of all of them in Vasari's words. Clearly, by separation of titles, we know Venus is not a leader. Venus with golden locks of hair doesn't fit anybody else. Venus in a landscape does not fit a Danae, whom is in a bedroom. Carnations are evident in both Venus works, but has been quoted in an 18th century description as being in the School of Love Venus, which is totally agreeable to me, being either one of the Venus works, as we can see both of them passing into the Granvelle collection before making their way to Prague via a stop-off in Antwerp. The little Cupids touching arrows, as obviously it's two, is of course a quote from Danae, and a limpid stream through legs indicating Io. No mention of details I can find is the Ganymede, but many overall studies do show that it's possible the full six did pass through Charles V's collection, making their way through all the famous hands until the 1720 mutilations, which I have gathered from multiple timeline influences. Cecil Gould also agreed that up to six of the mythological works could have passed through the Charles V, acknowledging Granvelle's Venus satire Cupid by Correggio, but couldn't fathom how the Mantua of Venus could make it back and forth to the Granvelle collection before going to England. So when you read Cecil Gould, just even words indicating he was confused how that could have moved, I just want to say, well, we can tell you why now, but he didn't have the access to it, and it's fine that it's not a criticism that people couldn't understand that because it didn't exist. The painting spent it was a good part of the last 50 years in a barn, and was an old 90-year-old lady put it into auction, and then it was bought by an antique dealer for £400. Then he cleaned it, and it would have looked like a crazy mess to him, and he put it on eBay. And then that was my second work after Antoinetta, and I bought it. Without Cupid, I can accept Vasari's quote as a grey area. But now the discovery being key to unlocking this problem as it is harnessed by the fact of the pigments, the damask, the inventories, the identical mutilations, the prestige ownership, and furthermore, the side-by-side comparisons exactly of Correggio's hand. I hope I can do this now because I'm going to do this in a handful of works that are some of my favourites and I feel the most impacting. But basically, some of my documentaries and research that you can access online. But these are the most famous works in the world, which is basically Rembrandt's The Night Watch. It's classed as Rembrandt's greatest work. It's the jewel of the Rijksmuseum. And it's historically, it's full of mystery. We'll never know what it's all about. If we walked through history as it always was, with this great understanding of Correggio, and it didn't have to be ignored and left aside, everybody would have... I don't think it's so special what I've done. I think it's just a funny thing that I end up learning all about the mythologicals, the greatest works in history, which we should all have awareness of in any shape or form, but somehow we've not. Nobody has, and no one's going to... I've talked to so many scholars, and some even know that I never knew about Correggio before this, and many of you might not have even thought about Correggio before this now either. So we don't need to tell each other off, but we need to wake up and realise. And this wasn't the first one I did. I think it's a special one to have done. I worked my way back from the 18th century when I found it. I actually found it in Hogarth's A la Mode, his most famous 6 works in the National Gallery. And we're going to miss that now because I wanted to not bore you. I know you're not bored, but it's a lot of information. It's basically Hogarth's A la Mode is the story of the Duc d'Orléans. It's the story of the mutilations. It's the story of... Even the Correggio Foundation talk about, how does Hogarth know so much about Correggio? What is it? That they're on the cusp of it, but Hogarth was a Freemason. They were art lovers. When Hogarth presented his A la Mode for the first time, the 6 works, he handed out a key. No one even knows it's a key. It's a page of heads of like famous Raphael, then turned into a character, like a normal person in a scene, like a Where's Wally. And that's a key. That's a translation of what Hogarth was doing with his works, but no one had a clue. But anyway, I worked... There's no beginning or end. There's just points in time and you can work backwards, forwards, sideways. And I started off with Hogarth, and that was we even recorded that day. So many of the great moments actually have been recorded, and you'd think they're all unreal. So anyway, I've gone back to, here we have is Rembrandt's The Night Watch. This painting is built up of the 6 mythological works. I don't show the general known works because I feel wrong to do so. It was this famous Io that really was influenced to Rembrandt. It was the famous Danae that influenced, which is now lost. It was my work that influenced, and you will see the great side-by-sides in a second, which makes sense, and you'll be like, wow, hopefully. This leader painting, the leader painting is alive. Well, it's in the Gamalda Gallery, but we use this version, which is a copy, which is in the Prado, but it's what it looked like before the mutilation. So it's, I'm showing you what the painting originally looked like, which is in Brookenfall, which I believe may be the original School of Love, which is the only one of the 6 works which wasn't mutilated in the Duke Orleans, because it's not a sensual picture. It's a proud mother, whereas all these other pictures are very sensual. As crazy as I may appear, I studied the Duke Orleans, why he lost the plot. He invented some currencies. He had so much money worries. His father died, his wife died. There's all sorts going on. And basically it was these monks that, like, what's everything going wrong for me? And, you got these naked women. Oh, bloody hell. That's why he cut them up. So I've done research on him as well. There's so many parts. So anyway, right. So in this painting, where is the Venus Satire Cupid? Like I said, these could well be and are known to be real militia and real people, but there's great royal families and all sorts of people where they'll ask them to sit in the position, stand in a position to do it to set up of the great works. So, and all the influences you'll see through history are of my version, which is the satire on an angle, not a side profile, which is the Louvre version. And the side profile would have been a much simpler drawing, which was a secondary smashed out version rather than the most intricate first version. There's the Venus. There's the satire. There's the forked tree. And here we have below is this sword and drapery of the quiver, and this is the Cupid. But when you get the really some amazing ones, it harnesses the ones you think, oh, I'm not too sure. The satires here and the spears, which are linked to people who have connected Velasquez, surrender of Breda, as why are both of these going on? Even Velasquez questioned the School of Love in the National Gallery as a copy, even though that version is a real version. But the reason he questioned its authenticity is because there was a greater famed model in existence, which was part of the Charles V's collection, and is part of this system that he was infatuated by the Great Six, and this other one that existed that Charles I wanted. We've got the Venus, the quiver, the Cupid, and the lion. This seems very basic, and this first bit is fantastic, but here we have this figure leaning down in the centre. It's Mercury, this proud person. I mean, if you can just visualise this head militia without a beard and hair, you can see there's a Venus face under there, and I'm using the Brookenval version. But if we can move to the next... Oh, sorry, just go back one. Close-up detail of this little figure's head has got 2 dashes of colour, one of gold and one of blue, and they're just randomly just splashed on his head. And he has a Torah, and Cupid has its book note. But if we go past this one, please. The Ganymede is fantastic because here is the Ganymede. You can see the face of this gentleman. He's just like Ganymede. And this is the copy of the Ganymede, because I believe this is the copy of the lost version rather than the one in Vienna. But the dog is below, and the stick and the tree is just remnant of the tree. So we have it's blurry, but behind you have the eagle, which is a stud forming the eye of the eagle. So here we have Ganymede. We'll go to the next one, please. Io is fantastic. So we are using the Vienna version, which I really don't like to do, but because I know let me tell you something. The Io version, the original famous version, which was part of the 6, I can tell you, because there's copies, that painting is copied so much of history, 19th century, 18th century, influenced. I can tell you when I see a copy of that work, whether it is of the Vienna version, whether it is of the famous version, and whether it is of the famous version before the mutilations or after, because after the mutilations it has a repainted head. And what's so important of the Io that I've got in there at the back on display, so important, that is the last known depiction of that Io now, because that's the repainted, that was painted in the 19th century, but that is the repainted head. That was the last we know of it. It's such an important part. So that was, to me, part of that great collection of 6, that Io was it's just so important because we don't have it, and it was stolen, and let's just hope it just still exists. It was stolen in World War II. I have a picture of it on the wall next to the leader, and I have the picture of it disappeared next to the leader in black and white. But we're using this because it's basically the difference with the other one. The Jupiter's head is more front looking, and but so let's just look, right? What's really interesting in the Night Watch, which is in every book and in all the, just excuse my language, there's no children here, it's bullshit basically. They say in every documentary on the Night Watch is they use it as this guy is in the central picture at the top, and he's got a blurry face. On the top left, he has a blurry face, and they say, right, in the centre of the Night Watch, this is where Rembrandt's using his use of perspective, because he has a blurry face. Well, there's people in the same position further back, further around here, there, and everywhere, all clearly painted and look fantastic, but it's because this guy is representing Jupiter. This person with his hand out, and that sort of lifted open mouth gesture, like the sensual Io, because all of these abductions or rapes were not. They were. What was the difference? Is they were engaging. They're sensual pictures, but they were more embraced, to be honest, rather than the hard words. But now the famous hand, which the Rijksmuseum advertises their famous part, is the hand of Jupiter coming down. The boot is reminiscent of the pot, and it's so blurry here, but this deer in the embroidery is drinking water, and they say, well, it's quite similar to the militia's emblem, but this figure in this part is Io's, is the deer drinking water, the pot, the hand of Jupiter. This head represents Io, and this blurry, hazed face. And if we go to the next one, please. So which is really cool, because what you have in the Night Watch, I know you may not be able to do it from memory like myself, but one side you have Danae on your right, on your left you have the leader, and in the centre you have the two Venuses and the Io and Ganymede. But the leader is really fantastic, because this figure represents the main leader, this represents the figure next to leader, this represents the little Psyche on the left side, and just the funniest bit really, which is my favourite in the whole picture, is this person, because I don't know if I didn't get to explain the lead. I didn't want to explain things to you that's just been said before, when Correggio died, what the pictures are showing, because you can do that all yourself, but I've got to mention it now. Is in the picture of Leader. Leader and my painting were the two famous works, and even though Leader is a partner to Danae, it was really the Leader and my painting that had the full fame. But what is really great is in the Leader painting, it's the three sequences of Leader. It's the courting, it's the engagement of the act, and then it's the job is done, see you later. But what's really cool is this version of, so this is the main leader, this is the engagement leader, but this one of the leader going, you can see in the Correggio work, you see the swan flying off, and the swan is clearly in the collar. Like, it's not like, oh, you've got to make it up. But that, can you see there that the tassels are the feet of it? But what I'm saying is, even a little bit, the whole thing tessellates. It's a complete, you can't have every part of the painting equals the Danae, the leader, the this, the that, hands, the... So if we go to the next one, please. What is the next one? I can't remember. Oh, so there we go. He's looking up like he's looking up. It's a shame it's so pixelated. But next one, please. This side is Danae. The coins of Danae raining down are on the arm. They're all in the arm. That face is this. We are comparing the copy. And the hand, he has a hand reached out, same as this Psyche. He colours his feathers, are in them feathers above. And there's one of them, him, he's holding his gun, like he's holding his arrow. But this work by Correggio is known to be these two gentlemen playing a trick on this gentleman. And famously, you may have seen some of my videos, is that Correggio's tricking us, because in fact, this painting is based on, I mean, if you know that painting so well, this male figure is actually a female face, and it's so reminiscent of the famous Venus face. So if we go to the next one, please. We've got this one up here because it's really nice to see Correggio's use of the Venus rather than the copy, because we don't have it. But the details of this painting are what based in this. So this male figure is the satire. This person is the Venus. Can we just click one back and then we'll whiz through it. I want to say it out loud, and then we'll reiterate and go through it. So this is the satire. This is the Venus. This is the Cupid. He's holding the hearts. The lion is in the table. It's a perfect lion face there. Here's the lion. And the I forgot the name of the game now, but this is the quiver holder and the arrows. Now, the two fingers are the forks. So let's just go through it, and you just carefully just whiz through them, please, Paul. this is the hand of the gentleman. Is in exactly the same as Satyr's hand. Next one. And the next one. Keep going, please. And we'll see. Let's go to the lion. Oh no, that's the hearts representing Cupid. The next one, please. It's really hard to see, but there's a perfect lion face in there. It's not like making shapes in nothing. It really is. I've done hundreds of paintings. Some of them are so perfect and so easy, but the craft, this has never been discovered before. That's the craft. The craft is if it was too evident, you blow the whole thing out of the water. The talent is, it's the game. Do you know every puzzle? I was at a fair the other week, and there was the most elaborate painting, everything going on. And the dealer said to me, he was a very well-known dealer. I said, "Tell me about this painting." He said, "Oh, it's just the time is so good to put all these wonderful things in it because it was flamboyant. It just shows grandeur and all sorts. It's all fluff talk. It's like there's no reason all this was going on for nothing. It's rubbish." I said, "I'll come back to you one day and I'll figure that one out." But pictures are puzzles, and believe it or not, even architecture is telling a story. There's nothing's just decorative appliance. Like great thought. People are well cultured. We've got to come back to that. It is a real dark age. People. Such great thought process went into everything. So this is a very famous, one of the most famous works by Correggio in the Borghese. The Borghese is such a world of influence of my painting. There's a painting that's been like linked to this, and they're both got the same faces. It's because both faces are the leader and a swan. And so this face I knew straight away, and I looked at it, I was like, oh right, it's based on the leader. And then I looked and I was like, look, all these cloths and it's all like feathers. And I was looking at it and I was like, so if you flick through, Paul, so this painting is based on leader. If you flick through, and then I was like, where is the swan? And I saw this peculiar part there. So this neck coming up like this. So then you even see, why are the shadows so peculiar in the background? Why has it got these weird, odd shadows? And I just thought to myself, I looked up a swan, and the first image with its wings opened up landed exactly on the shadows. But the shadows are quite peculiar, that are not fitting with the man. But if you flick through, Paul, so we can see So this painting is based on leader. But if you flick through, Paul, so you see the feathers in here, it's weird creasing. And if we flick through, there's only two of them branches in the centre of the basket, which are reminiscent of the feet of the swan. If we... on the next leader, consistently through history, I can always go, where's the character next to the leader? It's always this gold blanket, and in position is this gold leaf. But it all fits in position. Can we? Just keep going, please. Just flick through them now, Paul, because then we can. So you'll start seeing the figures. So this is a set of works by. This is fantastic. The Boy Bitten by a Lizard. And it's exactly the positions. I knew I was going to end up start doing these positions. And the lizard, but there's so much more to it, to be honest. It's not just all about Correggio. They are following Correggio, but there's something more to tell you another date when you're ready. But there's more. I'm sorry, I'm going to have a tease, but... No. It'll confuse things too much. But there's some. It doesn't stop. Oh, it's all about Correggio. Correggio did a great thing. Basically, Correggio short and sweet. Correggio reinterpreted the biblical works into mythological works. But that is the key, because biblical works come from mythological works. So the story of Daniel is the story of I never say it correctly, but the Annunciation. And basically, so this work, very famous work by Correggio, you would never realise it, but it's because I'm used to how the tricks are of when they're embedding these works, and I know the original head of IO how it looked. This guy at the top is the head of Jupiter, and this face and the arms are the body of Io, and the hand coming down is in the body, and the leg in the horse, and even the horse has water dripping out of his mouth is reminiscent of, is emulating the deer. So you'll just see it now if you just flick through. Here's the head of Io. If you flick through, please, Paul. That's the head of Io. Sorry, the other head was the head of Jupiter. If you flick through, so this is based on that, and this figure is based. He's using the blueprint system. He's creating great works by using the Correggio works. And if you go through, you'll see the hand in the cloud is in the horse, and the leg is reminiscent. It's the funny way they did it. It's the funny puzzle. It's the funny game. It's just, I learn the way some of them do it, and it allows me to understand. Like Vermeer, when you read about Vermeer's description of his works, it's just no one knows anything. And it's like the girl with the pearl earring is Venus. The art of painting, which I really want to do that one, to be honest, we must do that one, is Correggio's Danae. But so if we just can we go to the art of painting, please? Because I really like that one, sorry. It only should be a couple above this. Who knows Vermeer's The Milkmaid? This Milkmaid is using the influence of, I was thinking these tones and these colours, the blues and the gold, it's basically it's Mercury, right? But I'm thinking, wow, that's quite similar. And I was like, oh, it's Cupid. Cupid's on the tile. Cupid is right here, and Cupid is holding his letter, same as he is here. So Cupid is in the tile. Yeah, so you can see the arm position, the colour correspondence with the helmet, and the pale tones of the face. But it may be a real lady. It may be a real lady, but it's like, right, I'm gonna do, he's done all of them. Like, you can tick them all off. Once you open the door and you find one really good one, you can find the set. Each great artist did one of each of the 6 mythologicals, and they did a group work. And so this is right. This was, excuse me for saying it, I've not got a fascination, it's just true history and it's a point. This was Hitler's favourite painting, aside the leader painting. But this painting by Vermeer, as no one knows what the hell's going on with it, like most Vermeers, and I'm trying to throw so much information at you, because just really want to highlight the importance of what the hell's going on, is basically, this is a reimagination of Correggio's Danae. We're going to do some flip arounds and close-ups, but I'm going to try and give you the information quickly, and then we'll side by side it, and then hopefully it'll all come together. So basically, this face, this character here, is Danae, and it's not mentioned too much, but it's mentioned in, which we will do, I'm sorry, I'll squeeze one more from here, is she's pregnant, okay? She's impregnating. We see this consistently with the Danae versions because it highlights she was impregnated. But basically, this drapery is reminiscent of the Danae drapery. She's got the sensual, cheeky face of Danae, and she's pregnant. But the thing is, which you can't see in these works, the story of Danae is raining down gold coins from Jupiter to impregnate her. And I was thinking, right, oh, there you go. There's the gold chandelier and the gold cloud. So the gold cloud and the chandelier, and it's funny because the chandelier has the Habsburg emblem on it, and people wonder why. But at the time, it was the Correggio works are in the Habsburg collection. But what's really special is this chandelier is not just a gold clad, or is it really? All the creases in the map are in line with the chandelier, and as these coins pass down through the cloud and down onto Danae, these creases pass down, and you've got in the foreground right now is all these big gold shimmering studs, and she's pregnant, and you have, if you look here, you have the cloth passing through. You have basically This figure with its head upturned and the pale face has a similar line up to this Psyche, but this Psyche's wings are in the colours of this cloth overhanging, and the two little figures here, for me, are basically this figure here who's holding he's not holding even a brush, he's holding a point here, and he's touching his points of his arrows, and I believe basically this figure within the picture must be it's possibly tallying up with the other little cherub. But just flick through, Paul, see if there's any sort of great... So, for me, this painting by Vermeer, the art of painting, but this is what I just find crazy is... So bear with me, the art of painting by Vermeer, which is this painting, is based on the Danae painting by Correggio. Hitler took home the leader painting by Correggio, which I've got recorded, and his close friends, he used to take it home with him, and he didn't know much about Italian painting, but he loved the leader painting by Correggio. And he took the Vermeer painting home. Maybe he never knew, but the Danae is a partner to leader, but this is an influenced painting of the Danae. It's really super geeky that only me, myself, and I will probably even find fascinating, but that's how I go. So she's impregnated. It's really, she has, if you know too well the face of Io and the hand and the feeling of it, if you become obsessed with these compositions by Correggio so well, one day they'll just open up to you, all these works, rather than I'm telling you first of all, because I'm changing your whole thought process at the moment if you know these works. But basically this person is Io, and what you have, you can't see it in here, but because it's too blurry, but the whole brush strokes in here in great detail. I mean, you might just get it because your brain has to, but this whole shading comes down into a hand here, and this picture you can go on Google Arts, and it's done in such a high resolution that I can confirm what I'm saying. There's a hand completing the shading that's reaching down, same as Io, and maybe I'll use the pen here. You may just grab it, but there's the eye there, a highlight there. The figure of the face is just there, and it's the square on face, just like this Jupiter. But we're looking. You can do this in your own investigation. It's there, but if we pass through a couple close-ups, the hand, the brushwork comes completely down, and there is a brushwork of a hand. But when you see how Vermeer does it, he's doing it with the most tainted little bit of shadowing, and it's like everybody's trying to do it like no one's done before. I'm going to do it in the most, because this is a giveaway already. This is a giveaway. This is really crazy, this one. So basically, Renoir's umbrellas is of the proportion, size, and scale of, oh God, it's so blurry. It's tragic to see a beautiful painting in such a blurry. So anyway, we'll leave it here for like this. So in the National Gallery, our National Gallery, this is the most important work in our gallery. It's Correggio's first mythological work. It's the School of Love. It inspired so much. It is the first model. It is a real model. It was the one that Velasquez questioned whether it was a copy, but that's to highlight the fame of the secondary model. This is only a room away from this painting. It's never been written before me. I've actually spent time talking to people that look at it to tell them I need the story to get out. This figure is based upon Mercury. This figure clearly is based on Leda looking at you, the whole position. And this little figure here it's so blurry to see, but the blue and the gold of the wings of Cupid. Now this picture, Renoir's done all of them. Leda, he's done the whole lot. He's done them fantastically. But, this is a good quality version to see. This is the bits I really like to show you is, so we just flick through, that's Venus, and flick through Mercury, and you can see the wings, the colours of Cupid's wings are in the top of the little child. But, this is the Impressionists The thing is, to keep you held on, when you hit the 19th century and then you start hitting the Impressionist work, one Van Gogh and then we're done. Just one Van Gogh. Sorry. Can we just, the potato peelers, please? So Van Gogh did it. They all did it, right? So this is based on Leader and the Swan. You'll see the characters one for one. So just side by sides, please. Go on, a bit more. So when you know, so leave that there for the minute. Once you know these, it consistently happens. The one on the right side of the picture, the same as Leader, will have one hand up and it'll have this face. But, you know, it's like you understand these faces so well, and then you meet 10 different artists that are painting them. They're never going to be the same, and it's a secret. But basically, this person will always have these bigger eyes on show. This one will always have a lower eyelids on show. It's always on the right side. It's like the combinations are consistent always in, we're not going to do it, I wish we could have done it, is the Las Meninas it's the same thing. But anyway, the School of Love in the National Gallery is the influence of Renoir's umbrellas. And in the National Gallery, in the shop, I just want to point this out, has not one souvenir or object, a rubber, a razor, a book, or anything that is of Correggio. There's not one thing. And I don't know why this is, why it's pushed aside. It's factually evident, a big part of our history, Correggio, and it might be a strange circumstance that Correggio's been just, this has happened. I don't know why this has happened. It may be that it will uncover so much more. Basically, my parting 2 words, if there's anything I can show you of what I've achieved in that room by having that collection, all the things I'm talking about, what I'm trying to do, never done a presentation before, inviting you all, is just never underestimate yourself and never underestimate me.